You wake up at 4 in the morning to the sound of a wooden pillow absolutely destroying your neck. You do not get to use a soft mattress because ruining your posture might make you look slightly less intimidating to a passing warlord. Instead, you slide open your paper door and look out at the beautiful, misty mountains of 17th century Japan. You take a deep breath of the fresh morning air and immediately remember that you are completely broke. Pop culture has lied to you for hundreds of years. You thought you were going to spend your days standing on a rooftop in the rain, looking deeply emotional while a flute plays in the background. You thought you would be a lone wolf slicing through 30 bandits with a single stroke of your legendary katana. In reality, you are a glorified middle manager with a sword license. Your entire existence is trapped inside a massive corporate hierarchy called the shogunate, and your direct supervisor is a guy who can legally decapitate you if he does not like the way you folded your laundry. Let us talk about your salary. You do not get paid in gold pieces. You do not get a direct deposit into a checking account. Your compensation package consists entirely of giant heavy sacks of wet rice. The government measures your worth in a unit called koku. One koku is technically the amount of rice it takes to feed one grown man for an entire year. So when your lord calls you in for your annual performance review, he does not offer you a 4% raise. He just tells you that you are getting an extra basket of grain. Imagine trying to navigate the modern housing market with 40 pounds of carbohydrates. You walk up to your landlord to pay rent, and you just dump 3 bushels of crops onto his living room carpet. If the weather gets too wet and your paycheck literally grows mold in the garage, your entire net worth is ruined. If there is a bumper crop and everyone has too much rice, the value drops. And suddenly, you are the proud owner of a bankrupt pantry. You are essentially trading your life for a giant bowl of sushi ingredients. But managing your carbohydrates is nothing compared to managing your boss. Welcome to the deadliest human resources department in human history, in feudal Japan. Social etiquette is not just a matter of being polite. It is a matter of keeping your head attached to your shoulders. There is a code of conduct called bushido, which sounds incredibly cool when a modern motivational speaker talks about it on a podcast. They tell you it is all about honor, courage, and inner peace. For you, Bushido is basically a 500-page corporate policy manual written by a paranoid dictator. Every single interaction you have during the day is a potential legal trap. Take bowing, for example. You do not just nod your head and say, "Good morning." You have to calculate the exact angle of your spine based on the social status of the person walking past you. If you bow at 15 degrees to a guy who deserves a 45-degree bow, you have just committed a profound insult to his entire family lineage and the standard punishment for hurting someone's feelings. In the Edo period, isn't a stern conversation with HR. It is an invitation to slice your own stomach open in a beautifully decorated garden. The practice is called seppuku. It is the ultimate corporate write-up. If you make a major typo on an official document, or if you accidentally step on your lord's shadow while he is walking to the bathroom, your career options narrow down significantly. Your manager will politely hand you a small, highly polished dagger. You are expected to sit down, wear your finest white robes, and calmly write a beautiful poem about cherry blossoms before you destroy your own digestive tract. And you have to do all of this without screaming or making an ugly face, because that would ruin the aesthetic. Talk about a toxic workplace. The worst part is that you cannot even quiet quit. If you try to slip out of the castle and become a wandering rogue, you are labeled a ronin. Being a ronin sounds adventurous in the movies. In real life, it just means you are an unemployed mercenary who smells like a wet dog and sleeps under a bridge. You do not have a lord to give you rice, which means you are reduced to doing odd jobs for local farmers just to get a turnip. So you stay at your desk, you calculate your bowing angles, and you pray that your boss stays in a good mood. But what do you actually do all day if you are not fighting? The short answer is paperwork. Lots of paperwork. During the peaceful Tokugawa era, there are no massive wars to fight. The country has been completely locked down by the government. Nobody can leave Japan, and nobody can come in. This means you are an elite warrior living in a country with absolutely zero military conflicts. You have spent 20 years mastering the art of the blade, and your primary daily duty is logging tax receipts for regional sweet potato distribution. And you sit on a straw mat for 8 hours a day, filling out forms in calligraphy. If your wrist gets tired and your brush slips, you just ruined the document. And remember what happens if you ruin a document. The dagger is waiting in the garden. It's to break up the crushing boredom of the bureaucracy. Your lord forces you to participate in mandatory cultural activities. You are required to study flower arrangement. You have to sit perfectly still and look deeply moved by a single stem of bamboo in a vase. If you look bored, you are lacking in spiritual refinement, which is a major black mark on your record. Then comes the tea ceremony. This is not a casual coffee break with your coworkers. This is a high-stakes psychological thriller disguised as a hot beverage social. Every movement must be completely perfect. You must pick up the tea bowl with your right hand, place it in your palm, rotate it exactly 90 degrees clockwise, take 3 sips, wipe the rim, and rotate it back. If you rotate it counterclockwise, you have basically declared war on the host's grandmother. The level of anxiety in that tea room is higher than a modern tech worker trying to give a crop. Presentation to the chief executive officer while their laptop is on 2% battery. You are sweating through your silk robes, staring at a green puddle of matcha, desperately trying to remember if you wiped the rim with your thumb or your index finger. And you have to write poetry on command. Your boss will throw a party, get slightly drunk on sake, and demand that everyone write a 17-syllable poem about the sadness of autumn leaves. If your poem does not rhyme or lacks deep emotional resonance, everyone will just stare at you in painful, deadpan silence. You are a killing machine who is currently having a panic attack over a haiku. Eventually, a minor rebellion breaks out in a neighboring province, and your lord finally tells you to grab your armor. You are thrilled. This is your moment to shine. You put on your elaborate helmet that looks like a terrifying demon face. You strap on your lacquered plates that took 3 servants 2 hours to tie together. You grab your legendary katana, a weapon forged by a master blacksmith who chanted prayers with every strike of his hammer. The steel has been folded over 1,000 times to create an edge that can slice through a falling silk scarf. You march out to the battlefield ready to engage in honorable, face-to-face combat with a worthy adversary. You step forward, clear your throat, and begin to loudly recite your long ancestral history, so your opponent knows exactly who is about to kill him. You tell them about your grandfather who fought at Sekigahara. You tell them about your father who defended the castle walls. And right as you reach the climax of your speech, you are shot in the chest by a peasant named Kenji who learned how to load a matchlock musket 2 hours ago. The katana is the biggest marketing scam in military history. It is a beautiful piece of art, but on an actual battlefield, it is basically a backup pistol. If you actually used your katana to hit a guy wearing thick iron armor, the edge would chip immediately, and you would be left holding a very expensive metal stick. Real samurai fought with long spears called yari. They stood in giant lines, shoulder to shoulder, and just poked at the enemy from 12 feet away like a bunch of angry construction workers. Or they used bows. Samurai were originally horse archers, which means your primary martial skill was riding a galloping pony, while trying to shoot a tiny target with a massive wooden stick. It looks incredibly impressive until you realize how easy it is to fall off a horse while wearing 40 pounds of metal plates. And then came the guns. In 1543, some Portuguese sailors shipwrecked on a small Japanese island and brought matchlock muskets with them. The local lords looked at these loud, dirty tubes and realized they could train 100 random rice farmers to use them in a weekend. Suddenly, your 20 years of elite martial arts training meant absolutely nothing against a wall of black powder smoke. The battlefield became uncool, loud, and incredibly dangerous. There is no honor in getting sniped from a bush by a teenager who is currently chewing on a piece of dried radish. But the real enemy on the battlefield isn't the musket. It is your own financial situation. As the centuries of peace drag on, the economic reality of Japan undergoes a massive shift. Because there are no wars. The merchants who are technically at the very bottom of the social ladder start getting incredibly rich. They are the ones running the shops, trading the goods, and managing the actual money. Meanwhile, your salary remains fixed in sacks of rice. The cost of living in the city keeps going up, but your pile of grain stays exactly the same size. Before long, you are forced to go to the merchants to borrow money just to keep your household running. You, a proud warrior of the elite samurai class, have to bow down to a guy who sells fish just to get an extension on your loan. You start walking past the local pawn shop, looking around nervously to make sure none of your friends see you. Then you slip inside and pawn your grandfather's ancient armor just to pay for your kids' shoes. By the end of the era, many samurai are so deeply in debt that they are legally adopting the sons of wealthy merchants into their families just to get a cash injection. You are selling your noble samurai name to a merchant's kid so he can wear a sword to parties, while you use the money to pay off your grocery bill. The intimidation factor is completely gone. You are walking down the street trying to look fierce with your 2 swords stuck in your belt, but everyone knows you are secretly calculating how many days of rice you have left before you have to eat boiled weeds again. So what about you? Are you the legendary warrior who can write a perfect haiku while dodging gunfire? Or are you the stressed out clerk who is currently trembling over a cup of green tea? Let me know down in the comments. But when you look closely at the history, you realize that modern life hasn't really changed that much. We just traded the straw mats for ergonomic chairs, and the koku of rice for a digital direct deposit. The arbitrary rules are still there. The terrifying middle management is still there. And the urge to dramatically resign over a minor inconvenience is definitely still there. At least today, if you ruin a presentation, nobody expects you to go sit in the parking lot with a dagger. That alone is a pretty solid win for the 21st century. Keep your head down, watch your bowing angles, and try not to step on anyone's shadow today.